how animals are adapting to our changing environment.
Rising temperatures in seas, massive droughts, changing landscapes. Successfully adapting to climate change is growing increasingly important. For humans, this means using our technological advancement to find solutions, like smarter cities and better water management. But for some plants and animals, adapting to these global changes involves the most ancient solution of all: evolution. Evolutionary adaptation usually occurs along timescales of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. But in cases where species are under especially strong selective conditions, like those caused by rapidly changing climates, adaptive evolution can happen more quickly. In recent decades, we've seen many plants, animals, and insects relocating themselves and undergoing changes to their body sizes and the dates they flower or breed. But many of these are plastic or non-heritable changes to an individual's physical traits, and there are limits to how much an organism can change its own physiology to meet environmental requirements. That's why scientists are seeking examples of evolutionary changes coded in species' DNA that are heritable, long-lasting, and may provide a key to their future. Take the tawny owl. If you were walking through a wintry forest in northern Europe 30 years ago, chances are you'd have heard, rather than seen, this elusive bird. Against the snowy backdrop, its plumage would have been near impossible to spot. Today, the landscape is vastly different. Since the 1980s, climate change has led to significantly less snowfall, but you'd still struggle to spot a tawny owl, because nowadays, they're brown. The brown color variant is the genetically dominant form of plumage in this species, but historically, the recessive pale gray variant triumphed because of its selective advantage in helping these predators blend in. However, less snow cover reduces opportunities for camouflage, so lately, this gray color variant has been losing the battle against natural selection. The offspring of the brown color morphs, on the other hand, have an advantage in exposed forests, so brown tawny owls are flourishing today. Several other species have undergone similar climate change adaptive genetic changes in recent decades. Pitcher plant mosquitoes have rapidly evolved to take advantage of the warmer temperatures, entering dormancy later and later in the year. Two-spot ladybug populations, once comprised of equal numbers of melanic and non-melanic morphs, have now shifted almost entirely to the non-melanic color combination. Scientists think that keeps them from overheating. Meanwhile, pink salmon have adapted to warmer waters by spawning earlier in the season to protect their sensitive eggs. And wild thyme plants in Europe are producing more repellent oils to protect themselves against the herbivores that become more common when it's warm. These plants and animals belong to a group of about 20 identified species with evolutionary adaptations to rapid climate change.
Now that you've learned a little about the adaptations of animals to our changing ecosystems, let's test your understanding. You will be shown 10 video clips followed by 10 multiple choice questions. Let's begin.
According to Business Insider, the behavioral patterns of animals are being disrupted by climate change and urbanization. In order to survive, animals are being forced to adapt to these changes in their altered environments. For some, that means relocating, tweaking their behavior, or changing their physical appearance. For example, researchers have found that the tawny owl's feathers have changed color due to climate change. As winters become milder, there's been an increase in brown-colored owls. Warmer temperatures are also causing monarch butterflies to delay their mass migration, while pink salmon have started making their migration earlier due to rising water temperatures.
Scientists have observed all the changes in the species below except A. The color in tawny owl feathers, B. The migration patterns of pink salmon, C. The migration patterns of monarch butterflies, or D. The color of robin's eggs.
Salmon have pushed up their migrating schedules. In an instance of one of the most rapid adaptations to climate change, Pink salmon are migrating earlier in the year than they did 30 years ago. This is a result of shifting water temperatures. According to researchers, the tendency among these fish to travel from the ocean into rivers to reproduce roughly 2 weeks earlier than they used to has become genetically ingrained. The change appears to be the result of natural selection, which has conditioned the fish to avoid inhospitably warm waters.
Number 2. Scientists have noticed a change in the spawning habits of pink salmon. This change is an A. Structural adaptation, B. Behavioral adaptation, C. A variation, or D. A mutation.
The rise of the super bedbug. As the number of bedbug infestations has risen over the past few decades, human beings have relied on basic pesticides to keep them at bay. But studies by leading entomologists continue to show that these home invaders have grown increasingly resistant to both traditional and newly developed poisons. In the instances where bedbugs are vulnerable to the chemicals that used to kill them within minutes, they now take up 7 days to die. Scientists and exterminators now recommend against an over-reliance on insecticides, citing a higher need for other remedies such as mattress encasements and traps.
Number 3. What is responsible for the bed bugs evolving into a stronger species? A. Resistance to climate change. B. Resistance to human pesticides. C. Resistance to colder temperatures. Or D. Dirtier mattresses and linen.
African elephants are ditching their tusk. African elephants were once famous for both their imposing size and the long tusks that differentiated them from most African elephants. But over the course of the last century, as poaching related to the ivory trade has diminished their populations across the continent, African elephants have adapted by losing their tusk or passing along the tuskless gene to their offspring. While this may arguably make them less of a target for poachers, living without tusks can be a tremendous disadvantage for elephants in the wild. Functioning as extended curved teeth, tusks allow elephants to dig up the ground, strip bark from trees, defend themselves against other animals, and instigate mating rituals. This adaptation is making elephants best suited to live in human-controlled wildlife preserves rather than the wild they've always known. The effect of poaching and big game hunting on this once iconic mammal serves as a living example of human beings' collective impact on the planet.
Number 4. Modern elephants are evolving to be born with shorter tusks. This is due to A. Natural selection that protects shorter tusked elephants from human poachers. B. Tusks get in the way of finding food. C. Both. Or D. Neither.
Peppered moths turned white to black to white again. The peppered moth, popularly known as Darwin's moth, adapted to its starkly changed habitat by turning from white to black in the wake of Britain's Industrial Revolution. This color change allowed peppered moths to blend in with soot-covered surfaces, blackened by factory pollution. But as the air quality in the United Kingdom has improved over the past few decades, these moths have begun to change back to their original color. While the numbers between black and white moths are roughly even today, scientists have determined that white moths will eventually return as the dominant representation of the species. Many point to this chain of transformations over 2 centuries as a living example of Darwin's theory of evolution, from which the moths take their nickname.
Number 5. The factor that drives the change in the color of peppered moths is best described as A. Artificial selection, B. Mutation, C. Climate change, or D. Natural selection.
Fence lizards are natural dancers. In the early 20th century, when fire ants first arrived in the continental United States, Southwest fence lizards were ill-equipped to deal with them. As few as 10 to 12 fire ants were once capable of immobilizing and killing one of these desert-dwelling reptiles. Over time, however, the fence lizard developed an ability to shake and shimmy the ants off of itself. It then passed on the instinct to do so to its offspring, along with longer legs and greater agility that enabled it to escape faster. The lizard's signature dance stands stands today as one of the most original methods of survival into which an animal has ever adapted.
Number 6. The dancing ability in fence lizards is an A. Artificial selection, B. Mutation, C. Behavioral adaptation, or D. Structural adaptation.
Emergence of the growler bear. From ocean pollution to melting ice caps, no other bear on Earth has had to deal with more environmental hazards than the polar bear. In search of habitats with cold enough climates, polar bears sometimes cross with grizzlies, leading to the creation of polar-grizzly hybrids, also known as growler bears or prislies. First encountered in Canada in 2006, the growler bear has the ability of the polar bears to survive in freezing weather and the hunting instincts of the grizzly. Its appearance speaks to its hybrid genetics. It has the polar bear's long snout and light furred torso, mixed with the grizzly bear's muscular build and dark furred limbs, and unlike other animal hybrids, growler bears are capable of reproducing, ensuring the unique survival of both species.
Number 7. Since they can mate and reproduce, polar bears and grizzly bears must be in the same A. order, B. family, C. genus, or D. all of the above.
As global warming worsens, at least one member of the animal kingdom is thriving. Researchers from Dartmouth College found rising temperatures in Greenland made ponds thaw faster, which caused the mosquito life cycle to start 2 weeks earlier in 2012 than in 2011. The warmth also sped up the mosquito's maturation process. Overall, the researchers' model predicts a rise in temperature by 2 degrees Celsius increases mosquitoes' chances of survival by 53%. Mosquitoes are more than just pests to humans. They have a serious effect on the entire ecosystem, perhaps most notably on caribou. Caribou calves are an especially good source of blood for mosquitoes, and rising temperatures help shift the mosquito life cycle. That means there are more adult mosquitoes during calving season. In response, the caribou will flee to more isolated places, which means animals that prey on them will have a harder time surviving, including humans in some areas. The caribou is considered a keystone species in the Arctic, and the advantages global warming gives one small insect could have a devastating effect on the greater ecosystem. Sure, there's the annoying biting, spreading of disease, and potentially negative effects on the ecosystem, but they're important too. Mosquito larvae are often food for fish and other insects, and many birds and bats eat adult mosquitoes. For Newsy, I'm Matt Moreno.
Number 8. If global warming continues, which statement is true? A. The mosquito population will increase. B. Caribou calves will migrate. C. Fish and bats will have more to eat. Or D. all of the above. Number 9. If winters continue to be milder and warmer, the snowshoe hare will A. Adapt whiter fur, B. Adapt browner fur, C. Will become extinct, or D. Will evolve into birds.
I dreamed a dream in times gone by, when hope was high and life worth living.
I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiving. Then I was young and unafraid, and dreams were made and used and wasted.
But the tigers come at night,
with their voices soft as thunder, as they tear you apart,
as they turn your dream to shade.
and still I dream he'll come to me, that we will live the years together.
But there are dreams that cannot be, and there are storms we cannot weather. I had a dream my life would be so different from this hell I'm living.
So different now from what it seemed. Now life has killed the dream I dreamed.
Number 10. Considering the animal that you are assigned, which human interference do you think has caused your animal to be an endangered species? Explain.